Under the African Union theme of winning the fight against corruption, various civil society organizations came together in South Africa to discuss and workshop solutions against the widespread corruption prevalent on the continent.
The common purpose that we have is to combat this Trojan horse called corruption. And I use that analogy on purpose because it does mutate, and sometimes you will not be able to find it. It's a virus, it's a disease. And from that analogy, you can see it comes in as a gift, but it's there to destroy if you're not careful.
Jagan Gray Johnson from the African Regional Office of the Open Society Foundation outlined how enormous the problem actually is.
It's the scar on the continent's conscience. I mean, that's just the reality. If you have, over the last 50 years, $1 trillion that can't be accounted for. And $1 trillion is so much money, it doesn't mean much to even me and you because we can't comprehend it, let alone the people that are living beyond $2 a day, which has been the accepted indices to define real poverty, endemic poverty, of which the majority of the African continent are actually wallowing in constantly.
These organizations came together under the banner called the Multi-Sectoral Working Group Against Corruption in Africa, with the hopes of establishing meaningful long-term impacts and solutions. The keynote speaker was the executive director of the Mo Ibrahim Foundation.
It is through corruption that we do not have adequate resources to deal with the developmental challenges our continent is facing. Development challenges, particularly human development, where we want to see our kids go to good schools, where we want to see good health services, and etc., etc.
There's been a lack of political will, not in all the member states, but the majority of them, the lack of political will to combat corruption. And the political will starts from the apex of political governance, from the leadership, from the president himself right the way down to certain individuals that have been entrusted with looking after the state, with manning state institutions, with ensuring that proper laws are passed. And not only are the laws passed, but the laws are actually also abided by. And if anyone is in contravention of those particular laws, there has to be a deterrent factor through punishment mechanisms that you actually make it very difficult for the lack of a better word, thieves to be engaged in thievery.
Gambian activist and rapper Killer Ace has been using his music to help represent the ordinary people on the ground who are often the most affected by this political and social issue.
Corruption is the reason why my brothers and sisters are dying, going through the way trying to reach Europe. Corruption is the very reason why the old lady at the market who pays tax every day is still being affected by a dirty environment that the municipal was supposed to clean. So corruption leads to a lot of stuff, and we believe that it's our time as young people and as youth to stand up and fight against it, because once we alleviate corruption, then we will all benefit from it.
The outcomes of this meeting and this conference and this gathering are actually not just going to sit in a drawer. The outcomes are actually going to be fed into the different constituencies. They're actually going to be fed into the different strategic partnerships and that alliances that we have. We are going to be feeding there to influence policy and to actually continue the work of advocacy.
Legislative frameworks have to be there. The institutions, the judiciary has to be strong. The other institutions that are supposed to be elevating the demand for public accountability have to be well supported and well funded. And also the political parties themselves need to be courageous enough and speak truth to power, even if it's in the wells of the chambers that we've seen so much acrimony. But that's the price of freedom, and that's the price of trying to hold governments accountable.
As the forum drew to a close, South Africa's continuing influence in the global sphere was recognized as leading the way forward for the continent.
It's no accident why we decided to do the third Civil Society Forum here in South Africa. Also, it's not a coincidence that we also decided that this will be, in the year of combating corruption, we will hold the Civil Society Forum here.
I think what happened in South Africa is exemplary. I think it is civil society organizations that have held leadership in this continent, in this country, accountable. This is a big country, this is a big economy, and to be able to do that is commendable. It's important also you do that, because South Africa continues to be one of the leading countries in this continent. The other BRIC countries are big players in the international scene. They are significant emerging economies. And for South Africa to be brought to that same level, it means that at least we are one country which is being recognized as a key player. We encourage South Africa to continue to be a member of the BRICS. It's a meaningful organization. It's a meaningful group of countries, and it will be a counter to the others where we do not belong.